Most recent blog post that I created is all about increasing your health span. And the first kind of point about this conversation, I think, is what's the difference between our health span versus our lifespan? And of course, like lifespan is our, the length of years that we're alive versus our health is our quality, or health span is the quality of health that we have for however long that we live. And I can understand that many of us would relate to that. And, if we could live for 120 years, that would be wonderful. But, what is the quality of those 120 years? So that's really what I'm interested in. And I know that you would be interested in as well, is like living a quality, healthy life for that time. And the good news about that is that there's a lot of research and science going into understanding that at a higher level. We have the genetics that we have in our body, and that's wonderful. They've blessed us in different ways, and some have not. Some of our genetics take away from our quality of life and all of that, right? But we've got what we've got. And really, I would say the kind of most recent percentages are that 20% of our health span or health is determined by our genetics, and 80% is determined by environmental and what we choose to do and the habits that we have on a daily basis that impact our health and wellness. So I want to share a little bit about that and what those habits could be and look like. I mean, we know there's a lot of them, right? But some of them that have been specifically kind of linked a little bit more to science about what can increase our health span. So aging, what is aging in our body, right? It's like aging is kind of, if you can consider one way of looking at it, like this clock kind of ticking over time, and it's just going to happen. Like aging is going to happen. But every good things that we do that help to impact our health will slow the aging process. And that's really exciting, right? And at the same time, like things that we do that are detrimental to our health can increase the aging process. And it's not necessarily something to kind of work on in our 60s and 70s, but rather the earlier in life, the more that we could slow the aging process. And what are the benefits of looking and studying aging on a broader scale? Well, one point I follow the scientist David Sinclair, who is, if you're interested in kind of learning a little bit more about the science and research around aging, he is studying that, a Harvard professor, MD, PhD, I think, PhD, but anyway, in the anti-aging space, right, that really looks at what things actually really impact aging in our body. And one of the points that he made when I looked at one of his talks was that, even if we cure a specific disease, like cancer, for example, which would be absolutely wonderful, and we're certainly putting a lot of effort towards that. And but what would the impact actually have on the average lifespan of all the people in the world if we cured cancer? And it would increase our lifespan on average by 2.5 years, which is great. But, if it's not that, there's other diseases that continue to impact our body, right? So what if we could actually slow aging across the board, including slowing these diseases and the impact of diseases over time? What would the impact be globally? Well, we certainly spend a lot of money and resources towards end of the life, end of people's lives dealing with these issues. So perhaps there's an economic impact of, if we could slow aging and help people be healthier for a longer period of time, an economic impact for sure, as well as quality of life and what people could contribute in their later years as well. So I think that's kind of an interesting point to make about not just, although not saying anything wrong with working on a particular disease, but what if we could look at the whole picture and kind of looking at from that perspective. And a little bit more about, I would say, understanding aging. What is aging that's actually happening in our body? Well, it's this breakdown of DNA, in a sense, that occurs on a scientific level, but not just DNA itself, but rather the what is described as epigenetics. I'm certainly not an expert in this area by any means, but I think it's kind of interesting to learn about this. And epigenetics is more about what are the changes of gene expression in our body, right? Like every cell has all the DNA, but only some parts of that DNA are expressed in every cell in our body. So sometimes what happens in aging is that this expression of DNA in each of the cells kind of breaks down over time, and we lose the ability to express that DNA correctly, say. There's certain genes in our body called sirtuin genes, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, that actually turn on the anti-aging processes in our body. So that's really interesting the more that we kind of study this. So I'm like, okay, so there's genes in our body that can be expressed that slow the aging process in our body. How do we have that happen, right? So there are certain kind of habits that are health things that we could do that actually help to express those genes. So here are 5 that I happen to have researched a little bit that have been shown by science to help with this specific thing. And I know that there are more than 5, right? But okay, so starting from the top, exercise helps to turn on these anti-aging genes that slow the aging process in our body. Exercise does, as well as, not just from a genetic perspective, but from an aging perspective of strengthening muscles and helping our life's, our overall strength and ability to protect ourselves, to I would say, like, protect ourselves from falling, right? That's what I mean by that when I say that. Or have something happen to our body that would break it down, right? Exercise helps to build our body and strength. So very cool. And American College of Sports Medicine, as well as the CDC, both are aligned on different guidelines for exercise, which if you're not, familiar with that, basically the guideline is 150 minutes per week, right? Which is 5 times a week for 30 minutes, or spread out differently, is like a guideline for just having a healthy body, for getting enough exercise. So it doesn't and that doesn't mean like it has to be super sweaty, completely exerted, but a brisk walk could be included in that. It's moving our body with intention, as well as the recommendation is to do twice a week resistance training or strength training in all of the muscles of our body. So strength training has shown more and more over time that there's a huge benefit to that. Okay, so exercise, eating less often is number 2. What I mean by that is there's, this can look a number of different ways, by the way. I don't know that science has figured out that there's just one way to do this, but it could look in the realm of like intermittent fasting, where maybe I eat at a certain point in the day and then I stop eating by a certain point at the end of the day. And there's a period of time where I'm not eating, where I'm allowing my body to heal itself. I'm allowing my digestive system to take a break. There's benefits of that in the anti-aging realm, as well as for lots of different body processes. And when I was researching a little bit more of David Sinclair's information, he talks about this, that there's not necessarily, like I said, one way to do this, although there's different kind of recommendations from different people and what they have to say about that. But his thought about it is that it's a little bit more body specific or personal. So your version of that could look quite different from someone else's version of that. Maybe it means eating a little bit less at a meal versus not eating at certain times of the day, or like I said, kind of stopping eating at a certain point in the evening, not all evening snacking kind of thing. Or maybe it means like on a more restrictive level, and people can look into that and understand that a little bit more. But I thought that was an interesting point about how that actually impacts aging, right? Aging on a cellular level. Number 3 is eating more plants, just eating more fruits and vegetables, and grains and plants, right? Versus animal product. That has an impact overall on aging in our body, decreasing inflammation, helping to protect us against heart disease, all of these different things. Number 4, interesting health habit that can impact aging is cold and hot therapy. So meaning like saunas, or going into the sauna and then jumping into the cold lake, or that the Finnish people actually do. And there have been a number of studies about the health benefits and how that impacts aging in our body as well. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing to explore. And I have one of our good family friends is from Finland and has introduced us to this, lifestyle of going into the sauna and then jumping into the ocean, which is so crazy, but it's very invigorating and it feels really wonderful. And there's some neat health benefits that go along with that, connected to aging in our body. And number 5 for today's conversation are there's actually supplements that have been shown specifically to impact these certain gene expressions that slow the aging process or turn on these anti-aging genes in our body. And some of those supplements specifically that are being studied are resveratrol, which is a compound polyphenol found in red wine, as well as other fruits and grapes and some different kind of interesting plants. Metformin, which is a drug compound, right, for diabetics. So there's some interesting research around that specifically. And NAD boosters, which has to do with kind of, I would say, in the realm of cellular metabolism, like in our mitochondria. And I don't know that I can totally speak to that, but those are like the three types of different supplements or categories of supplements to kind of explore if that's something that you're interested in. Personally, I am really interested in resveratrol, being that that's like more of a plant compound that has not just benefits on kind of turning on these anti-aging genes, but also when kind of, I would say, partnered with or combined with other polyphenols, has wonderful advantages to decreasing inflammation in your body and a whole other bunch of things. And I'm really interested in that as a whole, and that supplements that I take even in pregnancy. I'm 24 weeks pregnant at the moment and have been using that supplement. I don't mean to endorse it specifically, but kind of did some research about it and talked to nurse practitioner about using that supplement, that was okay, and have experienced a lot of benefits of that even during pregnancy. So that is a couple of points that I wanted to bring to the table and share about, and just, if anything, what I'm interested in and most interested in is empowering people in this statistic that 80% of our health span, our longevity, our anti-aging, how we feel every day, is determined by what we do. So the more information that we can gather about that and perhaps experiment with and empower ourselves with, and creating those kinds of habits can just really help us create a wonderful, healthy body. And that's what I'm interested in. And so hopefully that you found some value or some points here, or something to explore further, especially David Sinclair's work. If you're really interested in longevity, I think he's a leader in the scientific community in that regard. And I will post my link to the blog post that I wrote about and included a number of those links, including to his stuff as well. So thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it and hope you guys all have a wonderful day. Bye.